Tuesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock, time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. NFL Scouting Combine only a couple of weeks away, and NFL circles continue to talk about Myles Garrett's trade request. Adam Schefter, ESPN's NFL insider, what he's hearing relative to the Myles Garrett and potential trade.
I want to know what the perception is in league circles about Cleveland's willingness to deal Myles this offseason.
Well, right now it's not high. They're not looking to move on from him. And by the way, it's early in the offseason. And yes, Myles Garrett is a proud, smart man, and this is what he wants today. But a month from now, when the Browns make a move a quarterback, and they have a quarterback, and you say, hey, Myles, how do you feel about, I don't know, Sam Darnold playing? How do you feel about, they probably can't afford Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins playing here? How do you feel about the idea that we just drafted Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward? How do you feel about that? Is that going to change his mind? Is he going to change his mind if and when they add some other players? Is he going to change his mind when they say, hey, we're going to make you the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history? Is he going to feel differently when he gets offered that new deal and they have a new quarterback and they've added some? I don't know. He might not. And if he doesn't, they're always within their rights to go look to trade him. But I can tell you this, they're not looking to trade him. They don't want to trade him. They're not intending to trade him. They always could be moved off that stance. But this is going to be a process that is not going to play out quickly, however it plays out.
All right, and the new league year, so when you can start negotiating with free agents and making trades is about a month away, just before the Combine, or after the Combine, before the draft. Joe Thomas, Hall of Famer, spent his entire career with the Browns. Never made the playoffs. This is kind of his unique take on Myles Garrett's trade request.
This really isn't just about one player losing faith in the team's ability to win a Super Bowl. It's a reflection of the franchise's current state. A direct result of the disastrous trade for Deshaun Watson. But more than that, it forces the Browns into the most critical offseason in team history. Garrett's been a foundation of the Cleveland defense for years. He's played at a Hall of Fame level since he was a rookie. Yet, despite the dominance that he has shown, the Browns have failed to build a team capable of sustained success. So his request really isn't about disloyalty to Cleveland. Don't make that mistake, right? It's more about making the most of his career while he's still in his prime.
And again, Joe Thomas, a unique perspective. Did not trade, wouldn't get traded, but a Hall of Famer nonetheless, never made the playoffs. So just a unique perspective on the trade request by Myles Garrett. Jake Trotter, ESPN's reporter, his take of where the Browns roster is relative to the rest of the NFL.
I honestly think they're so far away at this point that just going through another full rebuild is probably the smart course of action, because you look, it's not just Kansas City or Philly, it's Buffalo, it's Cincinnati, it's Baltimore, it's Houston. You go down the list and you just don't stack up very well. And it's not only that you don't stack up very well and you have the quarterback issue, but you're like quietly becoming an old rickety team that's super expensive. And it's just hard to recalibrate that. I just don't think they're willing to go down that route right now. And they might be forced to after this next season, but I think they're going to try to retool and hope that they can catch some magic like they did last season, which is not impossible.
Everything looks worse when you get really bad quarterback play in the NFL. It just does. All the teams you mentioned, that Jake Trotter mentioned, all have really good quarterbacks, and the Browns don't. All right, turn our attention to the Cavaliers. They won 128-107. They're now 43-10 on the season, best in the East. 25-4 at home, best in the East. 15-3 against the West, best in the NBA. And they got it done again last night facing Minnesota, and they got off to a great start. Evan Mobley, the offensive rebound, he gets the bucket and the foul. 28 points, 10 rebounds. Donovan Mitchell on the drive, crossover, spin, knocks down the shot in the paint. Mitchell, again, just outstanding. Take a look at this one. There's the crossover, and then, poster. He had 23 points, 8 assists. DeAndre Hunter made his Cavs debut, and the defense was really good. There's the three ball as well. 12 points, 3 of 4 on three-pointers made. Cavs held the Timberwolves to 0 of 16 to start. The defensive end, they win at 128-107. Here's DeAndre Hunter just on his Cavs debut.
I think it'll be easy. It's pretty seamless when you have teammates like Don, DG, and Evan, guys that are unselfish, guys that are really talented. I think it'll be pretty easy for me.
Helped us get off to that 16-0 start. I thought our, kind of what we envisioned, our physicality, his activity, size, you just felt it. I don't know if you guys felt it out there. I sure did. Big reason we got off to that good start.
How intrigued are you by the possibilities that he gives you at both ends?
And I'm thinking, you get Isaac and Dean back. Now you got, who knows? Not to get ahead of ourselves, but, you could play DeAndre at the 2, Dean at the 3, Isaac at the 4, any combination of those guys with Don or so just gives us another, elite defensive wing who makes threes.
It allows the Cavs to mix and match, play matchups, and do a lot of different things, which is critical if you're going to win a playoff series in the NBA deep in the playoffs. Guardians, they'll have their first workout with pitchers and catchers coming up on Thursday. One of the things that's going to be interesting, who's their second baseman after the trade of Andres Jimenez? Andre Knott, Guardians reporter, answers that question.
This year, look, they're going to need Juan Brito to fill it. He's going to get the first nod, I believe, at second base. He's a guy that we're going to watch in spring training from the very beginning. He's already been there. He's going to get an opportunity to play second base. Will he play second base like Andres Jimenez? No. Nobody plays defense like that kid does. But they're going to give him an opportunity to go swing the bat like he did in the minors last year where he had 40-plus doubles, 20-plus home runs. The first comparison is he has a little bit of Jose Ramirez in him. He's a scrapper. He's a guy that you look at and you kind of go, huh? But then you watch him have 4 or 5 at-bats and you go, I want that kid up.
And again, the Guardians can use as much offense as Juan Brito can supply. We turn our attention to the Browns. Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter. Talking Browns and Myles Garrett, Sports4CLE. Be right back.
Are you ready? The Ohio Lottery is about to unleash 50 new millionaires on Ohio. Want a chance to become one? Play VIP Millions. With 50 $1 million winning tickets, it's your best chance to win $1 million ever.
We turn our attention to the Browns, and we welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Mary Kay, you were in New Orleans for the Super Bowl. You were in Mobile for the Senior Bowl. You made everybody heard the Myles Garrett trade request. When he made that request known, how much of it do you think was relative to the quarterback position and the Browns' unsettledness there?
It's really hard to say, because if that's all it is, they're working on that. They're going to solve that and they're going to fix that. And they're trying to find a good starting quarterback for 2025, whether that be a rookie or a veteran. So they have every intention of playing winning football in 2025. I'm not sure exactly what part of Andrew Berry's speech didn't sit well with Myles, but he seems pretty adamant about this. At first I thought, okay, maybe he'll be mollified or appeased by becoming the highest paid defensive player in the NFL. Now, after hearing his whole Radio Row blitz and the things that he said to ESPN on game day, now I'm not so sure that that's what he's going to want or that's going to even appease him. So I don't know where this is going to go. I wrote a column right away from when I was at the Super Bowl in New Orleans saying that it makes no sense to trade him and why they won't. But after I heard the whole Radio Row Blitz thing, now I'm starting to wonder if this can work out for both sides in the end.
So I mean, there are some hurdles. You know, if Andrew Berry does in fact trade him, before June 1st, it's $36 million that he doesn't have to spend on improving the roster. You know, that's the dead cap space. What are some of the other consequences? I know you addressed it on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast too. Some of the other consequences of this fallout.
Well, first of all, if Myles wants to go to a contender, that means the Browns would be getting low first round picks. And that's not going to fly with them. They don't want low first round picks. If they're going to get good first round picks, they want them to be nice high picks where they could really transform the team. As it stands, first round picks, the hit rate is about 43% generally, meaning that they make it to their second contract. And then when you get lower down into the round, it's even lower than that. So I don't know that it's going to make very much sense for them to try to trade him to a contender where they wouldn't be getting those quality high picks. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is that you know, the window, the pool of candidates that would want to trade for Myles to be able to give up the draft capital that the Browns would be seeking and to be able to then turn around and give him the money that he wants, that's got to be a very narrow market right there, because you have to have probably $38 million a year that you're willing to give him with an enormous signing bonus. So you have to have cap space, you have to have cash, you have to be willing to make that kind of a commitment. And if you're already going to the Super Bowl or already contending for a Super Bowl, chances are you're pretty maxed out on your roster. So I don't know how many teams are going to be able to do that. Let's just take the Lions, for instance. They're going to have to pay their premier edge rusher, Aiden Hutchinson, probably $40 million a year by the time the offseason is over with. So can they go ahead and try to pay something like that to Myles? I doubt it. So I just don't know that the market is going to be there that he's hoping for. So these are some of the residual effects.
And I think you had said this somewhere. It doesn't seem like he's doing this to try to get more money. The Browns the Browns would be happy to pay him and make him the highest paid defensive player in the NFL.
Yes, they would. Now, when I sat down with Andrew Berry at the Senior Bowl, in the stands of the Senior Bowl on a gorgeous sunny afternoon with just Zach Jackson from The Athletic and Kelsey Russo from the Browns, it was just the three of us there covering the Senior Bowl. And Andrew gave us this wonderful amount of time to sit there and ask him all these questions. And at that point, he did say, I asked him point blank, are you open to giving Myles the extension that he wants? And he said, yes. He usually doesn't answer those questions, but he was very forthcoming in this interview. And he said, yes, he is open to giving him that extension and that he wants him to get his third contract and to finish his career in Cleveland. And as we know, the phrase that he wants him to go from Cleveland to Canton, which Myles kind of threw that back into his own statement. But yes, they are the ones that are willing to make him the highest paid defender in the NFL. So we'll have to see how this goes, but in the end, that just might be the best thing for Myles.
Yeah, and there are no easy answers, but he still has 2 years left on his contract. I mean, and they're not going to sit there to do it as a punishment, but if it doesn't make sense, why would Andrew Berry trade him?
Right. Why would Andrew Berry trade him when he's playing at a very, very high level? And if they are trying to get to winning, what's the best way to try to get to winning than to have the best defensive player in the NFL on your football team? So he would be the cornerstone of that defense going forward, at least for the next 2 years, and then they could even franchise him after that. But he would be that, as opposed to trying to get a couple of first-round picks that may turn into something and may not turn into something. So to me, it really doesn't make a whole bunch of sense to trade him knowing what he can do on the football field. But if he is going to make this get ugly, which when he talked to ESPN on Sunday, he said point blank, I'm willing to do whatever it takes, basically to get the Browns to trade him, to do contractually whatever it takes. So that means he's willing to sit out games. And sometimes that could stretch into a very, very long holdout. And if this thing gets ugly and there's so much negativity and bad blood surrounding it, then I don't know if that's worth it to anyone.
You also wrote an article, and again, a quarterback and good quarterback play makes every roster look better. Do you think the Browns would have interest in Aaron Rodgers? And again, I know you wrote an article about this. Updates: Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, some other veteran QBs. Take us through that.
I don't really think that they would have much interest in Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron is going to require a large sum of money. I think he's going to want to be guaranteed a starting job. I don't think he's going to want to come in and mentor a rookie quarterback and just or keep the seat warm for him for a little while. I don't see him wanting that. So I don't think he's really a viable option. I think you have to keep him in the back of your mind in case a bunch of other things fall through and and he changes his mind about what he's hoping for or the offers that are available to him. So I don't think you can reject it or rule it out of hand right now, but it doesn't seem like a realistic option to me. And then Sam Darnold, he's another one that should be available, but as of right now, his market value is about $40 million a year. That's what I'm seeing on Spot Rack. Well, I don't really think the Browns are going to have that kind of money to pay a quarterback like that, who is probably just going to be your bridge quarterback, maybe not even start the season. So that doesn't seem a viable option to me. And then Geno Smith, there was a lot of talk that perhaps they would trade for a Geno Smith, who has a pretty cap-friendly salary next year of $14.8 million. But Mike McDonald out in Seattle just said this week that they can win a championship with Geno. He spoke in glowing terms about Geno. And if he's not just trying to drum up the price, then it appears that he is thinking about sticking with Geno. And Clint Kubiak is their new offensive coordinator, excited to work with him. And so that one might not be a viable option either. And then you think about someone like Kirk Cousins. Now, Kirk has the attractive salary for next season because the Falcons have to pay him the 27.5. The Browns would just maybe be able to get away with the 1.255 million. And that's obviously the kind of money that they would be looking to pay for their bridge quarterback and somebody who could come in and maybe go ahead and keep the seat warm for a little while or start all of next year or whatever the case may be. So these are some of the guys that are out there. We don't know yet who's going to be available for sure, who's not. But right now, there's not a whole lot of fantastic options in the vet market.
So you look over to the draft. Who do you think the best fit for Kevin Stefanski's system is? And I know you answered this in a Hey Mary Kay as well.
Well, first of all, I don't think they should be looking at it in terms of who the best fit for Kevin Stefanski's scheme is. I don't think that's any way to choose your quarterback. I think you have to choose the best quarterback that you can get at that pick, whether or not he fits the scheme. So let's say Cam Ward is not as good a fit as Shedeur. Well, if he's the better quarterback and he's available to you at number 2, then by all means, that's who you're going to take. So I just don't think fit is the right criteria here. I think you have to get the most talented quarterback and then work around him. And I asked Andrew Berry about that, even if I asked him about specifically like a Jalen Milroe. If you guys were to go with someone like that, where you'd have to change up your whole scheme, would you be willing to do it? And he said, yes, he would, because that's what you have to do. You get the talented player and then you build around his skill set.
So again, another one of your Hey Mary Kays. Are either of the top quarterbacks at the top of this draft, or any of the quarterbacks at the top of this draft, are they good enough to compete in the AFC North, do you think?
It remains to be seen. No one thought Lamar Jackson was necessarily going to be good enough to compete in the AFC North, and he has 2 NFL MVP awards and came very, very close to winning a third. So I think you just have to look at these guys, and if you see traits in them that you really like, then you have to take a chance on one of them, and you have to develop around him, build around him, make sure that they come into a really good environment, make sure they're coached well, make sure that whatever you call for them is what is going to match up with their strengths, and go from there. I mean, you can go all the way back to 2013. I wrote a column saying they should take Geno Smith and build around him and do just that. Just what I'm saying that the Browns are saying that they need to do now with this new quarterback. And the Browns didn't do that. They took Barkevious Mingo instead. Well, Geno Smith has gone to 2 Pro Bowls now, and the Browns just absolutely, completely, 100% passed on him in the 2013 draft and didn't bother to try to take a chance on a quarterback and see if they couldn't make something out of it. So needing a quarterback the way that they do, I think they have to take one of these guys and just make the most of it.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we continue talking Browns. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. We know Andrew Berry has had some success trading for wide receivers. Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy. Dan Orlovsky, ESPN, talking about the market for wide receiver Deebo Samuel, who is granted permission to seek a trade.
Yeah, I think the Denver Broncos could be a team that you would entertain. Sean Payton always loves guys that he can get the football into their hands and try to make something happen with it. I would say the Pittsburgh Steelers as well. We know Pittsburgh needs to and wants to add a little bit more perimeter help. There's going to be plenty of teams that want Deebo Samuel. Is he the Deebo Samuel of 19, 20, 21? I don't know, but I do think the versatility that he can use in a Cleveland Browns type of offense could be a big benefit for an offense and a young quarterback.
So, Mary Kay, again, is that a route that Andrew Berry looks for? Could you see him trading for another wide receiver? He's had a lot of success.
Yeah, why not? I mean, when a player like that becomes available, the Browns almost always look into it. They almost always contemplate it. They almost always ponder a move like that. And why wouldn't you? A player like that can help transform your offense. So if I were them, I would 100% be looking at Deebo Samuel and see if you can't make something happen there. He would be a tremendous addition to this offense. And, he can hurt you in so many different ways, and they definitely need more weapons. And what better way to welcome your rookie quarterback into the NFL than by supplying him with a player like that?
So do you expect Andrew Berry to be very active free agency and the trade market? We know the salary cap is going to be an issue. It just is. But do you expect Andrew Berry to be active like he usually is on those two fronts?
They will be somewhat active in the free agent market. I don't think that they're going to try to find the final pieces to the puzzle for this year, because I don't think that they're looking at this year necessarily as the year that they plan to get to the Super Bowl. I don't know if they're looking at it quite like that, and maybe that's the problem that Myles had with the whole thing. I think they're looking to build on their 3 victories from last year and maybe try to get to 8, 9 victories this year, and then maybe try to really launch it the next season after that with their what's probably going to promise to be a rookie quarterback. So I don't know that they're going to go out and break the bank and do whatever it takes to get over that hump this year, because I don't know that that they feel like they're right there. So I think they will look toward short-term gains, but also long-term impact.
So I know you wrote an article just about Bill Musgrave and how significant his ties to Deion Sanders are relative to the Browns now that Musgrave is the quarterback coach.
Yeah, kind of interesting. They've known each other for a very long time. They played together on the San Francisco 49ers. Deion was instrumental in making sure that Bill Musgrave got to throw a pass in the Super Bowl so that he didn't just have that ring on for nothing. And so they go back a long, long way. And I think that it's just one more way that the Sanders family would have a tremendous comfort level if Shedeur ends up in Cleveland. So I just think it is significant. I don't think it's necessarily why they made Bill Musgrave the quarterback's coach. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I certainly don't think it can hurt.
No, and the more you hear Shedeur Sanders talk, at least the more I hear him talk, the more I could see him leading an NFL. He's a guy that I think people will gravitate towards. I think players will gravitate towards him.
Yes, I think so. He has that natural charisma, that natural leadership ability. I watched him move around Radio Row. I watched him interact with people, with reporters, with his dad. I've heard interviews. I've read up on him, and so far I really like what I see in terms of just the character, the personality, and those kinds of things. He's checking off all of those boxes, and I'm sure he's doing the same for the Browns and pretty much any other team that's interested in him.
Gut feeling, do you think the Browns have decided, are they taking a quarterback at 2? Are they still, I mean, they're not still very early in the process. Do you think they take a quarterback at 2 or is it another guy?
I don't know how you don't. I just don't know how you don't take a quarterback at number 2. I would think that you have to. They don't plan on picking at number 2 again anytime soon. And if you have a shot at one of the top 2 quarterbacks in this draft, I think you have to take it. So to me, it's a no-brainer. I wouldn't even be looking at anything else. And, for that number 2 hole. And then you can come back at 33 and anywhere else and get your running back and get your defensive tackle or your defensive end or whatever the case may be. But I think you have to go quarterback at number 2.
So do you think draft strategy kind of funnels free agency, or is free agency funnel the draft strategy?
Well, I do think that the Browns like to go into the draft knowing that they don't have a glaring need anywhere. But once again, I think this year they will change that strategy up a little bit. And Andrew even kind of talked about that at the Senior Bowl, that I don't think they feel compelled to have a completely ready to roll roster after free agency. I think they're willing to plan for 2 years out, 3 years out, 4 years out, and use a lot of their draft picks to get there.
Who do you think the veteran on this team, if there is one, which veteran's most likely to get traded leading up to the new league year?
That's a good question. I really don't know that they're looking to trade very many veterans. I mean, I suppose, let me think. I really don't think that they're going to trade Myles. I don't see them trading any offensive linemen. I don't know that they're really necessarily looking to trade anyone. I suppose maybe they would think about it if someone picked up the phone and asked them what's going on with Greg Newsome, because to this point, they haven't really necessarily made the attempt to sign him up to that long-term contract, and he is heading into his 5th-year option year. So maybe that's a place where they would be willing to listen to something, but I don't know that for sure. We're leaving for the Senior Bowl. We're leaving for the Combine 2 weeks from yesterday already. I can't believe it's here. And that's when we're going to get a better feel for what Andrew Berry is thinking about some of these veteran players that he has.
And again, this is from one of your Hey Mary Kays before I let you go. Do Browns fans need to reset their expectations? Have the Browns kind of reset their expectations?
Well, I think that the Browns were in a Super Bowl window, but at that time when they felt they were in the Super Bowl window, they felt that Deshaun Watson was going to be part of that, and some of their other players were going to be a big part of that. Nick Chubb was going to be a big part of that. Well, some of their best players now are not going to be around or might not be around for next season or the season after that. So they are retooling, they are reshaping. I think the expectations should be somewhere in the, okay, let's hope to win 8 or 9 games and maybe sneak into a wild card spot, instead of, all right, this is a year where we feel like we are rolling out our Super Bowl roster and we are 100% ready to go. That's where they have felt like they were over the last few years. I don't think they necessarily feel that way for this year, unless the rookie quarterback exceeds all expectations, and then they get a new running back and things just go better than anyone anticipated. They will have, and from a last place schedule standpoint, a little bit of an easier time of it that way. And if they can stop turning the ball over, then anything can happen.
Yeah, to your point, last 2 picks that have gone number 2 overall have been Jaden Daniels and C.J. Stroud. Browns have to hope they continue that trend of guys that look like they can play elite quarterback in the NFL for a long time.
Absolutely. And if they get a guy like that, I mean, look what happened in the rookie years of both of those guys. I mean, why not? Now, I don't know if Shador is as good as those guys. I don't know if Cam Ward is going to be. I mean, when I was at the Senior Bowl, even Jim Nagy said he did not think that any of these quarterbacks in this draft would crack the top 6 of last year. 6 quarterbacks went in the first round. But that doesn't mean that it's going to work out that way. It doesn't mean that that's going to hold true. If the Browns see something in Cam or Shador that they really like and they feel that they can make it work, then I think anything can happen.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter, plain dealer, cleveland.com as always. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you check her out. Great Browns coverage in the pages of the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. We're going to step aside. We continue talking Browns. Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report straight ahead. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
You know, it's nice to hear other coaches' interviews of how they run their team and how you can't be a head coach and be calling plays. You have to be more involved with everything on the team, defense, offense, special teams. You know, with our two-time coach of the year, we don't get that because all he wants to do is call plays. Why can't he be more involved in the team? I just wish we can do that and get a GM, too, that can pick a team and we can turn this thing around faster than you think. But we don't because our owner gave these guys a 5-year extension, so that means we're still stuck with these two guys. It's just never going to get good.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Fred, you know, he's referring to Nick Sirianni saying he didn't call plays because of that. Andrew Reid calls plays, and they were trying to win a third straight Super Bowl. I guess there is no right or wrong answer. If I'm Kevin Stefanski, I'm probably calling plays because if he doesn't get it right, there won't be another year is the head coach of the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like you're seemingly on borrowed time this year, that not too many coaches survive a 3-14 season and, you know, are around to see it through or to get a chance to turn it around. I mean, Sirianni won the Super Bowl, and last year they talked about a collapse after they started 10-1. They still made the playoffs, but I think they lost 6 out of 7, limped into the playoffs and got beat right away, and that was a collapse. And he seemed to be on thin ice, and I think they were 11-6. So, yeah, it's all about what have you done for me lately in the NFL, and I think that is why it's so big this year for the Browns. I mean, if they're going to get another pass after a disastrous season in 25, the only explanation I could get would be if they do completely blow it up and the owner says, I'm on board with that, do what you got to do, I'm with you, and if this is the best course. But I don't think that's feasible. I mean, you can try to rebuild, but even if you want to trade Myles Garrett, I've said it, it's been said, not too many people that are talking about good fits, where to get traded to, will work financially. So, yeah, I think they have to, if anything, go all in and try to turn this thing around. That's why it's so important, this year. But as far as calling plays, I mean, I think that's what Kevin Stefanski, what he was brought here originally, that might be one of the best things he does. I think he feels by turning it over to a Jim Schwartz, he feels he's much more competent to run that defense, and he trusts him. And I think he feels the same way with Ventrone on special teams. That's why they didn't make any changes. And so say what you will, you might be right, but the Browns decided that was their best bet, to have some continuity as opposed to blow it all up. I'm talking coach and GM, and hope you get it right the next time. I mean, we've seen the other way, a cycle for 25 years. Is it the right move or not?
Yeah, again, we'll let it'll have to play out, and we may be right back to blowing it all up again for another 25 years. You did a bunch of position breakdowns. Let's look at the linebackers, and I know one of the big questions, and who knows the answer to this: will JOK be able to play? If JOK is able to play, you got another playmaker on the field on defense.
Yeah, I've said it before even Myles, went public with his request, that I felt like the defense is much more closer to being like a top 10 defense than maybe the offense. And that's why I felt like put some assets, add what you need to, and find what you need to be back in the top 10. Now, this is purely speculation, is that we haven't got any updates at all from the Browns on JOK, other than even at the end of the season, we're hopeful. That was the only word Stefanski used about next season. Well, that doesn't sound that great. Even like we fully expect him to be ready to go. But to say hopeful, and then to put that when Jordan Hicks said in his interview right after the injury, we're all praying for a miraculous recovery, that doesn't sound good. So, and even what the Browns did say was he's going doctor to doctor trying to, get the answers. I don't know. I mean, he posted something, I guess, during the Super Bowl, something about, tough to watch, the teams playing. So you parse every word, but with that said, I don't know if Myles Garrett knows any more about the situation, and if he, and I'm just speculating. This is no fact. If he knew that he was not going to play, that is another major hole to fill on defense. So, yeah, all I can do is go by what they said and hopeful. And you would think that with 6 more months before the season that he would be ready to go. But, yeah, I mean, the defense with Garrett, you look at a couple more playmakers. I think the biggest thing is just creating more turnovers. I mean, any way you look at it, when you have 4 turnovers or 4 interceptions the whole season, and 12 as a team, that's just not going to cut it. Maybe just, I know they're trying to make turnovers and sometimes it doesn't go that way, but that was the biggest difference from 23 and 24 statistically. The offense was worse as far as turnovers in 23. Browns gave it up 37 times. Last year was like 32, but the defense took it away 28 times in 23. Last year he took it away 12. That's a difference of 22 times. The team's out on the field almost twice a game, more drives, and that's going to give up more opportunities. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of questions, but I still think the defense, has a path to regain being in the top 10 again.
Well, and another one, the cornerbacks. That Denzel Ward was good. Everybody not named Denzel Ward probably took a step back in last season.
Yeah, I just wrote that, I think, yesterday, that the cornerbacks going into the season, MJ Emerson was, everybody's talking about him going to the Pro Bowl in his 3rd year and taking another major leap. He had 15 passes broken up. He tied the, for the team lead in 2023 in his second year, had 4 interceptions. And then in his third year, he had 4 passes broken up and no interceptions. And he was called for a lot of penalties, defensive hold, pass interference. I clearly feel like he took a step back. And so I don't know if he's as good as he showed in the second year or is he as bad as he showed in his third year, but they got to get better play there. And then Greg Newsome seems to have leveled off, as you said, took even a step back. He's in the 5th year of, they picked up his option, over 13 million guaranteed, kind of like a Jed Wills, no man's land. They picked it up, but I still don't know if they will give him another contract. And if you're going to trade him, first of all, you got to get a replacement. And I don't know what they think of Cameron Mitchell or Miles Harden, the young guys they drafted, but Andrew Berry's drafted a cornerback, I think, every year, so I expect he'll draft another one. But how high do you draft one? Do you go as high as with the first pick, and look at, Travis Hunter as a cornerback? They have to make some moves, and they have to make decisions all the way around. And the Myles Garrett thing, is another decision that is the domino effect all the way around. But I'm just saying, I think we clearly felt that the corners played well in 23, and last year, other than Denzel Ward, I don't think they did play that great. And you got to get either new players or feel that they're going to get back to a higher level of play if you're going to play that type of defense.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Now I can step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, talk a little bit about quarterbacks in the offense. Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Are you ready? The Ohio Lottery is about to unleash 50 new millionaires on Ohio. Want a chance to become one? Play VIP Millions. With 50 $1 million winning tickets, it's your best chance to win $1 million ever.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report. Nathan Zagura, color analyst on Browns Radio Network. On the quarterbacks in this draft that can help get things rolling in the right direction for the Browns.
I like Shedeur Sanders. I watched 4 of his games and charted them out, and what you see there are some traits that I think are critical to playing the quarterback position at a high level. He's an excellent decision maker in the pocket. He is incredibly accurate. In fact, the most accurate quarterback in the history of college football. And he is so tough. He played behind one of the worst offensive lines that I have ever seen. And his ability to sometimes get away from the first guy, but really he took a beating, never saw bad body language, never saw him complain, never saw him throw his teammates under the bus. So he's a leader. So the knock would be, maybe doesn't have the strongest arm, but when you watch him on tape, he can make far hash sideline deep out throws in tight coverage, tight windows, and do it just fine. He can get the ball down the field as he did, on a Hail Mary to force overtime. I liked him a lot, and I like Cam Ward a lot. I think that there are 2 quarterbacks in this draft, and fortunately the Browns have the second pick, who can both help turn this franchise around. Cam Ward, incredibly talented, has a cannon, can throw it from any platform. Watching him is a lot more similar to watching, not from a running standpoint, but just in the pocket movement, footwork, all of that, to a Mahomes or to a Lamar Jackson. You could tell he was fans there. Sometimes I'd call it even nonchalant.
So, Fred, I know you have also written an article about updating quarterback projections. So now we're on 3.0. You got a veteran quarterback, Kirk Cousins. You got a rookie drafted quarterback, Cam Ward. Take us through that article and how you arrived there.
Been trying to do it every couple weeks, every other Friday. And yeah, as you said, we're on the 3rd one. Did one last Friday. And I have Kirk Cousins right now. After when he was on one of the shows and disclosed that he played after after he injured his shoulder, that the Achilles wasn't the problem. A lot of people thought he wasn't recovered from the Achilles. It was the shoulder. He took a hit against the Saints, and he really wasn't the same. He played the next 5 games. I think he had 1 touchdown, 9 interceptions in that span before they benched him and went with, Michael Penix, who they drafted 8th overall. And my reasoning is, in looking at that, is his stats, he ended up with 18 touchdowns and 16 interceptions, which still had him 20th in the NFL in the quarterback rating. It was 90. And that's still better than anything the Browns had. But you take away, if he wasn't healthy and he played 5 games with 1 touchdown, 9 interceptions, up until that point, he had 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, which is more like he has done in his history. And I just feel like, okay, he's worked with Kevin Stefanski, had 2 of his best years with him in Minnesota. He is 37. But to me, if he's going to effectively, most people assume he's going to get cut. He's going to be able to pick whatever team he wants to. He's going to be able to be a free agent. And that team's going to pick up a lot of the contract, as in Russell Wilson went to the Steelers last year. He just seems to make the most sense if he wants to come to Cleveland or if the Browns want him. So that's why I went back to him. I did have Derek Carr. Didn't have a lot of information, but went back to Cousins as of now for the reasons I gave. But I still think, even using the Falcons blueprint, is a lot of people were surprised when they gave Cousins 4-year, $180 million contract and free agent, and then drafted a quarterback 8th. I still think the Browns can draft a quarterback 2nd. Cousins isn't the long-term answer, but say you really feel good about Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, you draft them. And they can sit there and Cousins can play. And he might play for a couple years. Or he could play like a year and you might feel like Michael Penix. He's ready to take over. But I don't think you can have enough quarterbacks, especially in this situation. So, but that's where it comes back to. You don't just take one to take one. But that's kind of across the board, is Ward, Sanders are the top of the chart. And maybe they wouldn't have been Jaden Daniels a year ago or whatever. But does that matter? If there were a middle of a first round guy, but they're your guy that can be for 10 years, your quarterback, you take them. But if you're in a position a year from now or 2 years from now, and there's a guy better, you take them. We can say all we want. And I'll say this. I said this long before Myles Garrett threw a fit and asked to be traded. As great as he is, the Browns should have taken Patrick Mahomes with that first pick in 2017. And he might not have been as good as he's turned out in Kansas City, but he's been to the Super Bowl, I think, 5 times. Myles Garrett hasn't been there, and that's why he's in this, quandary.
So you wrote another article as well, and this came out last week, I think it was. Nick Chubb hopes to remain with the Browns, wants to get it done. Take us through that and what you think. They need to upgrade the running game. You need a quarterback, you need a running game, you need another wide receiver. Other than that, the offense is okay. Well, you need offensive linemen too.
Yeah, I mean, you could make the case after you're 3-14, they need to do a lot of things. I don't think you can fix everything. I think the case of going back to the wide zone is, I think if you can get Batonio and Teller and Conklin another year and maybe draft another Zach Zinner type that can step in, you got to get younger there, but you can't overhaul everything. And if your offensive line is pretty much intact, maybe a little question at left tackle, but when you look at the running back position, I don't think Nick Chubb is going to have a big market. I think they will be able to do what they did last year and offer him an incentive-laden contract. But I don't think that stops you from looking in the draft. I think that's your most economical way to. It's a loaded draft at running back, and if you can use a third-round pick on a Travion Henderson or a Judkins or Scadaboo, somebody like that, I think they very well could be your number one running back. But I think you have Jerome Ford, who I think is a great second choice. I don't think he's the bell cow. But if you get a rookie and Nick Chubb, and if Nick Chubb does return to being the Nick Chubb we all know, then you're in great shape. But you can't count on him. Last year he averaged 3.3 yards a carry. His career was 5.3. So the second year back, maybe he'll be closer to the 5.3. I don't know. But I don't think you just kick him to the curb. There's free agents, Aaron Jones, J.K. Dobbins, couple guys you could look at. But I think the draft might be the most economical you can take. I know Andrew Berry used a 5th round on Ford. I don't think he likes to draft him too high. But even 3rd, 4th, I think you can probably get a running back that can step in and contribute right away in this draft class.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report, is always great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Fred.
Thank you.
Fred Greetham, make sure you check him out. Senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We turn our attention to the Cavs. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Full Court Action is a half hour devoted exclusively to men's and women's basketball from across the Mid-American Conference. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave Bacon. Join me at 6:30 Tuesday nights, and we'll meet the coaches and players from the Mid-American Conference who are making an impact in basketball. Full Court Action will spotlight the top plays and performances from all across the Mid-American Conference with some historical action as well. Catch Full Court Action Tuesday nights at 6:30 on Rock Entertainment Sports Network. We turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Continue playing really good basketball. One more game before the All-Star break. They'll be in Toronto tomorrow. Beat the Timberwolves last night. Their defensive play set the tone really in the first quarter, and they've had a defensive rating of over 108.6 over their last 8 games, 7-1 during that span. That is 4th best in the NBA during that stretch. They also have the 3rd best offensive rating, 124.8. Let's welcome in Ethan Sands, Cavs beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Ethan, the defense was really good last night. We kind of got our first look at DeAndre Hunter, and I think it's going to get even better.
I think this is exactly the type of defense that the Cavs are trying to get into. Obviously, it's unprecedented this season for a team to hold them 0 of 16 to start a game from the floor, but that's exactly the type of caliber that the Cavs expect from themselves. And it's what they want to continue going on throughout the season. Obviously, they've continuously talked about the slippage that has come on the defensive end, and it happens when you're that good offensively that you feel like you can lay back a little bit on the defensive end. But now they're trying to get that playoff pedigree ready for the playoffs, of course, and that is when you talk about how important the defensive end is going to be, because, of course, there's not always going to be games where you're shooting 50% from the field and 40% from three-point range in playoffs when teams are coming at you with a different level of intensity, and some games are going to be won in the trenches on the defensive end, and that's what they're trying to get their principles and their schemes ready for coming down the stretch.
It gives them a lot of versatility. I know you've discussed a couple of things about DeAndre Hunter and the trade on the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. So first, how he affects team chemistry. Team chemistry was great, and on our show we had 3 or 4 voicemails who talked about not wanting the trade because of the team chemistry. Also, why is the DeAndre Hunter trade kind of a bet on Ty Jerome? So take us through both of those.
100%. And the first kind of connects the two, right? A bet on Ty Jerome, because that's his best friend, his roommate from 3 years at the University of Virginia. And they won a national championship at Virginia in that time as well. Obviously, we also understand that he has the same representation as Evan Mobley. They work out with each other in the summer. He has a relationship with Darius Garland. They've already been joking around in the locker room since he's been traded, and it's just been one game. So we understand that this team can flow and allow each other back into each other's lives and all these different things, even if it's just because they've been around each other hooping for the last couple of years. All of them are veterans now. And the most interesting part of it is now with the trades that were made outside of Tristan Thompson, the oldest player on the Cavs is 28 years old. And then you get into the facet that we're talking about of how this is a bet on Ty Jerome. Well, obviously, we understand that the Cavs had to go away from Karis LeVert, who was one of their ball handlers. So now you have Ty Jerome as the second ball handler off the bench. He's the guy that they're going to look to facilitate. He's going to look to be the stabilizing force off the bench for the Cavs. And also, you understand that his play throughout the season has given the Cavs pause and hope that he can continue to play at that level, especially come into the playoffs. And the bet portion is Ty Jerome hasn't played a single playoff game in his entire career. So we want to see how he's going to adjust to that environment, plus the fact that he's already played the most games of any season in his NBA career. So we understand that his body is going to be playing to a different level. He's going to have to adjust. But that's been the biggest thing that Kenny Atkinson has said about Ty Jerome, especially coming off ankle surgery last season where he was just playing 2 games in the entire year. It feels like he has matured to the point where he understands the importance of recovery, health, and that should help his longevity, even though this is the longest season in his NBA career.
So when LeVert leaves, when Yang leaves, you bring in Hunter. There's some minutes there to be had. Who do you think takes them up? Who gets those minutes that are now available? Because there's guys are playing well whenever they put them in.
I mean, I think the simple answer is DeAndre Hunter. But to get more nuance with you, I think the most important player to keep an eye on is how Kenny Atkinson is now readily available to give minutes to Jalen Tyson, the rookie out of Cal. And he's shown that he's an energy guy, a rebounder. He still has some work to do on the offensive end, slowing down the game, letting the game come to him, not trying to rush or force things. We saw it last night on a fast break when Donovan Mitchell tried to shovel past him a ball, and he simply was by himself and fumbled it and dribbled it out of bounds. But Jalen Tyson is a guy that has shown himself to be a great defender thus far into his career, and it's also shown that his rebounding is important. So being able to trust in Jalen Tyson in the move is also a big factor for the Cavs, because with Dean Wade out, Jalen Tyson is now your backup 4-man outside of DeAndre Hunter, who has been playing the 3 so far in his lone game of the season on the Cavs. But the other important part is Jalen Tyson and Georges Niang worked together with their player development coach, who was Damari Carroll, who is Damari Carroll for Jalen Tyson. And I think it's important to note that Georges Niang was kind of honing and working with Jalen to get to the point where he would be able to facilitate and come into the role that Georges Niang had of his own. So I think it's important to know that bond as well and how that will play a factor in the role that Jalen Tyson has for the remainder of the season.
So I know you wrote an article. How are the Cavs using regular season kind of as the lab for the playoffs?
I mean, this is a team that understands where it's standing in the Eastern Conference. They're at the top. They're 5.5 games above Boston. They know that this is where they can begin to use the time to try and find out what works. And especially when you're implementing a new player midway into the season, even though there's only 29 games left, that it's important to try different things to make players uncomfortable now so that when they get into the playoffs, they are more comfortable in those situations, no matter what Kenny Atkinson or opposing defenses throw at them, because we've seen it this season. Kenny Atkinson likes to go into zone, blitzes, switchability, all these different things that he has utilized for this Cavs team to make them as successful as they are. And the biggest thing that the Cavs have mentioned that they need to focus on is their communication. Last night, there were a couple miscommunications that led to open layups, open three-point shots. And the main two players that they want to hear more from is Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, two guys that are very quiet and like off the court, but they need to bark orders and be able to simply be louder, even if it doesn't necessarily mean saying something that has meaning to it. They just want to hear them as they are the directors of traffic, especially on the defensive end. Obviously, we understand Evan Mobley had a great game last night, 4 blocks, 2 steals, 28 points, 10 rebounds, but we know that there is still more to be drawn out from that player, from that guy. He's someone that the Cavs have the utmost respect and utmost praise for, but that also comes with the understanding that they want more from him on a nightly basis. And that comes down to the little things. That's why this is a lab for the Cavs, the regular season. It's not about banking wins. It's about setting themselves up for playoff success.
So with the trade, Cavs have a couple of roster spots open. What do you think? There's the buyout market, which will be, it'll kind of be shaping and evolving over the next couple of weeks. Who are some names to listen out for? Do you think the Cavs get active in that at all?
I mean, they have to. They legally have to be active because they are under the minimum amount of players on their roster. They're down to 13. The minimum is 14. The maximum you can have is 15 on a roster. So we understand that the Cavs have about $1.5 million under the luxury tax. So they have room to go ahead and go get 2 more players if they see fit, or they can make a bigger splash with 1 player giving out the $1.5 million that way. Obviously, there were guys like Torrey Craig, Ben Simmons that the Cavs had on their radar, but those guys have since been dealt to other places. Now you look at guys on the two-way, you look at guys from the G League, you look at guys that could only get an opportunity because the Cavs deem it fit to give them praise for the work that they've given behind the scenes. And I think there's also names across the NBA that are still open in the buyout market. Obviously, Mo Bamba is one of those. But the biggest one that I wanted to see, or that is possible for the Cavs internally, is Naquan Tomlin. He's a guy who's 6'10". The Cavs have been looking for a backup center to come in and play minutes behind Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, and a little bit ahead of Tristan Thompson. And I think Naquan deserves a shot because of the work that he's put in. He's a high flyer. He's bouncy. He's energetic. And we've seen how those kinds of guys can play a role on this team already, i.e. Jalen Tyson. But I definitely think that Naquan Tomlin is the guy that I would say is my sleeper pick for the Cavs to go get, even though there are options in the buyout market externally that they could pursue as well.
Ethan Sands, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Ethan.
Thank you for having me.
Ethan Sands, make sure you check him out. Great coverage of the Cavaliers for cleveland.com as well as the Plain Dealer. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.